Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in to this episode. Super excited to bring another episode for you guys talking about FERS eligibility, the Federal Employee Retirement System. And today, really excited to jump in. Jason, how's it going? What's going on?
Yeah, it's going good. We got FERS eligibility today. Football season's kicking off here.
Yep, let's go
I know
both.
you're a big Bows fan. Hopefully they have a good season. I mean, towards the end of last year, it seemed like there was some promising moments, right?
Yeah, there were. I mean, it's a new staff. It's a young team. To be honest with you, if I was, as a fan, I would have tempered expectations. With Timmy and the
Mm-hmm.
and the team. This year will be a very interesting year nonetheless. But yeah, I'm still excited. It's another year. It's another season. UH sports is huge for me and my family and my dad and I spending a lot of time
Right.
at the Aloha Stadium at the new UH Stadium and
Sure.
as well as basketball as well. So anyway, yeah, super excited.
Yeah, I think I saw something. They put up a new screen or something at
At at the stadium,
the
yeah. I mean,
complex there, right?
honestly, I think they took it out of the Aloha Stadium, but it's necessary. They needed to upgrade a little bit, but
Right,
it's
right,
okay.
right.
I mean, look, it's a young stadium, and I'll be the first to say on this, like, I want it to work. I want them to make that stadium work because the stadium on the campus is so much different atmosphere than having to,
Right.
all these students hike over to the Aloha Stadium over there. So I think if they can
Sure.
make it
No,
best.
no, that's a good point. And
But
I'm rooting for my
anyway,
Eagles. My Eagles got Mariota,
that's true.
and we're headed back to the Super Bowl.
Hey,
So
I power to you. I hope so. Um, but anyway, we're not a sports talk show. We are a financial
yes,
planning
okay,
one. But yeah,
yeah.
super
So we're
excited.
talking FERS eligibility.
Yep,
FERS eligibility. So what we're talking about here is we're not doing the computation, right?
yep,
We'll do that in the next episode, but we're gonna break it down to kind of like little bite-sized segments here. So we're talking about when do you become eligible for that employee retirement from the federal system? And primarily we're talking about the pension, but there's other things involved there, right? You get the medical and whatnot. But
yep,
and so when we're talking about that, we're going to break it down. There's four main categories, right? You got your immediate retirement, early retirement, you can defer your deferred retirement, and then there's disability.
yep.
Okay, so those are the four we'll touch on. And then I think it's important to talk about a little terminology. So you hear minimum retirement age.
Yep.
Paul, you want to tell us about minimum retirement age? What that
Yeah.
kind of means?
Yep. So, basically it's the MRA, the minimum retirement age. And basically what that is, how old you have to be to like receive your retirement benefit. So I guess a way that I kind of make it seem common to other thought processes is kind of like social security. It's like, full retirement age. But in this case, for the federal retirement system, it's based off of your age, right? So if you were, there is a list of computation. I'm not going to go through all of them, but basically, if you're born from either 1970 or later, that minimum retirement age or the MRA is 57 years old. So maybe some of our listeners would be a little bit older than that, and then it would be younger for you. But for everybody that's born in 1970 and after, it's 57 years old.
Yeah, and the minimum retirement age, usually all pensions will have this, right? The
Yep.
state has a minimum retirement
Yep.
age, and yeah, it's interesting looking at the graph, the chart here. Let's say if you were born in 1952, it's 55 in 10 months,
Right.
and it just kind of incrementally works its way up. If you're born in 1966, it's 56 in 4 months. So I guess as time progressed, they slowly keep pushing the minimum retirement age further back, and a
Yep.
lot of that is life expectancy and probably just making the system work.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
for all intents and purposes, yeah, right, yeah. So for all intents and purposes, if you're born 1970 and later, it's 57, and then for those in the 1960 range, it's going to be 56 and some odd months, depending on when that is, right? And
Yeah.
that should cover almost all the listeners out there. I'm sure there's a couple a few federal workers who are still working well into their 60s and 70s, maybe it's a little different, but
yeah. And you know what, just, to point out, like, at some point in time, maybe I'm wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if they've changed the age again. So, there's probably going to be a point in time where it gets to become closer to 58, right?
Sure.
So these things change. But as of right now, that's what that looks like.
Right. So that is the minimum age that you can retire.
Yep.
From the federal system. So it's important to know that, because what we're going to get into is kind of eligibility. And eligibility, when you're eligible for the FERS benefit, they use the minimum retirement age at times, and other times they'll use an age that is above the minimum retirement age. So for instance, jumping into immediate normal retirement. We'll just break this down. So this means that you're going to retire and immediately start claiming, or immediately meaning maybe there's a 30-day lag or whatever it is, but immediately start claiming that that pension, the federal retirement. As long as you have 10 years and you've meet the minimum retirement age, so 57, then you're eligible. Or if you have 30 years and minimum retirement age, you're eligible. Now, you can, so the other ages they have is, if you have just 5 years of service, then you can still immediately retire, but you have to wait till age 62 instead of 57. So you can't have 5 years for immediate, we're just talking immediate retirement. You can't have 5 years and immediately retire at the minimum retirement age of 57.
Right.
You can defer, right? So you can have 5 years and I stop working at 57 and I'm going to defer till age 62 and that's when I become eligible, right? So it's important to understand that. The other one is if you're age 60 and you have 20 years of service, then you're eligible for immediate retirement. So I'm just going to read this off. There's a couple things I'm going to read directly from the OPM website. So if you retire at the MRA with at least 10 years, but less than 30 years of service, your benefit will be reduced by 5% a year for each year you are under 62, unless you have 20 years of service and your benefit starts when you reach age 60 or later. So what that is saying is, if you have less than years of service, but at least 10 years of service, and you retire at the minimum retirement age, which is 57, your benefit is reduced by 5% per year for each year you're under 62. So let's break it down. So you're 57 and you have between 10 and 30 years of service.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 10, right. Then you're going to take that 5% per year. Sorry, it's hard talking through the numbers. It'd be nice to draw this out.
Yeah, no. So I mean, just so basically, you're taking it 5 years early, right? In theoretically, in this example, right. So you're 57, 62 is when you should be starting it. So it's a 25% reduction in that benefit. And again, yes, we're not going to talk about computation. We're not going to talk about like the actual numbers and things like that. But years of service and when you take it is a really important piece of that computation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving right along, we move to early retirement. So again, from the OPM, early retirement benefit is available in certain involuntary separation cases and in cases of voluntary separation during major reorganization or reduction in force. So what that means is early retirement, this isn't you can choose to be early retirement. There's some sort of circumstance, whether it's a reorganization and they're offering an early out, or there's some situation when there's involuntary separation. That's what we're talking about with early retirement, early eligibility. And those ages are 20 years of service at age 50. So at age 50, if you have 20 years and there's this reduction in force, then you can have that early out. And then if you have 25 years of service, it can be at any age. Again, as long as there's that circumstance to which involuntarily there's some sort of separation, that's the early retirement,
right?
Which there was From my knowledge, there was this opportunity sometime in the 90s, I believe. I remember talking to some guys at Pearl Harbor, and there was this reduction in force, and they were offering this early out for people.
Yeah.
And some people took advantage of that.
Yeah, and even with our most recent conversation with Kaipo Kroll, like he mentioned, the riff, right?
Right. The
As a
riff,
process,
exactly.
as
Right,
a
right.
process that he had to go through with all the the great service members out there at
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor. So yeah,
And the unfortunate thing that he mentioned is if they have this riff and you're not eligible for the early retirement, you're just kind of pushed out the door.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, you retain your years of service.
yeah,
It's not like you lose that, right?
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, obviously that's that's an early option. And again, like Jason said, it's not something you can choose to do. It's either an involuntary separation or something that's done from a RIF or something like that.
Sure.
But yeah, that's the early retirement ages. As your eligibility continues, let's talk about deferred eligibilities.
Yeah. So deferred, as long as you have, well, let's say the magic number is 5 years. If you have 5 years, so let's say you work from age 20 to 25, right? And you got 5 years of service, you are eligible for a benefit,
Right,
but you're deferring that benefit until you reach, if you only have 5 years, it's age 62.
right. Wow.
Yeah. So deferred just means you stop. So maybe in your mind, you retire or you change careers and you're deferring that benefit to a later date. Now,
Right,
if you have 30 years of service, that you can defer and start your benefit at age 57, the minimum retirement age for
right,
those born after 1970.
right.
Or if you have 10 years, you can also start at 57. See, I'm not sure why they break it down in the chart where they show 10 and 30 at minimum retirement age and not just 10, right? The lesser of the two. But that is how they show it in the graph. And again, just because you're eligible, if you retire at the minimum retirement age, computation wise, there's some penalties to consider with that.
Right.
Anything you want to add to that before we move on to disability?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, just, depending on where someone's at, obviously most people listening probably are going to push towards that, 10 plus, probably close to 30 years of service. So it might not matter. But maybe there happens to be a friend or a family member that only has 5 or 10 years of service. Don't forget. I mean, I don't think you're going to forget, but you will have eligibility and you will have the ability to take a benefit, even if you stopped working there, 10, 15 years ago or whatever it might have been. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And it can be a good planning tool. Like maybe it's important to know that you can defer because maybe you're getting burnout or you want to take a change of path or make a pivot. It's important to understand that, well, I can retire and I don't have to wait until, 62 or whatever it is. I can, as long as I got my 5 years or whatever it is, I can just defer and wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an important planning tool. Last one is disability. And with disability, as long as you were working for the federal system for 18 months, which isn't very long, a year and a half, right? At any age, you qualify, you're eligible for disability benefits. So I think that's a great thing. We hope nobody gets, disabled or needs those benefits, but hey, stuff happens and that's there to help you out. Now with all these things, like we said, you're eligible at 18 months for disability, right? At any age. But again, your computation is going to reflect how long you've worked in the federal system. So just because you're eligible, let's say you worked 5 years, you're deferring, hey, I'm eligible for the benefit, but you just understand when you start calculating, things out, that 5 years is going to make your benefit much smaller than if it was 20 years in the calculation. I think that's a good thing to hammer home. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and again, we'll talk about this in a future episode of how to actually computate your benefit. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like the fact that you have these different options, it just creates great planning opportunities, right? So everybody's gonna have different situations. and know what that magic number might be for you or magic age might be for you, so that you can just, hey, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to make a decision to move in a different direction. But yeah, disability is another one of those to just being mindful of. But yeah, the unfortunate thing about disability is, there's going to be some complications with medical and other things. But anyway, with that, that's my last thoughts I have.
Yeah. So I think just going back to it, we covered there's 4 categories of eligibility: immediate, early, deferred, and disability. And it's important to understand there's ages, minimum years of service associated with all those. And there's also something called a minimum retirement age, which they reference often when you're looking for that eligibility. So it's important just to kind of understand those separate categories there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, so with that, I think that's a great place to wrap up, and we'll continue the conversation about the FERS, Federal Employee Retirement System, in later episodes. So thanks, Jason, for your time, and hope everybody has a great day.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions expressed by Jason Cutitta, Paul McWilliams, and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial or Inspire Advisors. For Jason Cutitta, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration. And for Paul McWilliams, investment advisory services are offered through Inspire Advisors LLC, a registered investment advisor with the SEC.